So the program is designed, it's really more about awareness where you are in the change. Because sometimes it's really hard to give. We have some models and things like that, but it's really hard to just dive right into that and say, here's the 5 steps and you will feel really great within a change. And we all know that that's almost impossible to achieve. So it's really geared towards gaining awareness around where they are in the change, creating intention. So if you want to approach change for yourself and then lead others through transition, you have to have intention in place. So check your intention. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then look at it as opportunity. I know I have a background also in positive intelligence. And one of the things I learned there is that we learn to look at things that everything is a gift or an opportunity, regardless of how dire a situation might be. So we want people to take ownership for the workplace experience and find the opportunity for themselves and for others, and then feel empowered and accountable for the experience that they're creating there in your organizations. One thing I always point out is, so we've been doing 3 and 4 hour Zooms, and that's a really long time for people. So we blend that with a lot of breakout rooms, a lot of interaction and insights that come from them sharing. So for instance, when we recently had a group of different YMCAs together, they don't all know each other or see each other. And it works great to have them go off and explore a certain issue or challenge on their own and come back, and the whole group learns from one another. And that's some of the value of the program as well. And when we do that, we find that people grow not only professionally and they learn something new to help to manage the change, but they also learn how to personally navigate, which has really come to the forefront as a result of COVID-19. So that 3 and 4 hours, sometimes even as an instructor, I looked at it and think, oh my gosh, we're going to be here for 4 hours. And it really goes quite quickly because there's so much engagement. But it's all based on the premise that we are in this VUCA world. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of VUCA, but this is actually a military term. And if we thought we were here before, and just curious, if you thought you were here before, you put yes in the chat. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the world was like this already. And think of those times you're always seeking the new normal. Like if my desk is almost clear and next week's the breakthrough week, and then it doesn't happen. And then along comes a pandemic. And now this VUCA has just gotten bigger than ever. So we have to find ways to navigate this so that we can find chance within the change. And you can attest to the fact that it has been really, really difficult. So it takes looking at a new vision and gaining new understanding for ourselves so we can share that with our people. The same with clarity, because the fact is that we are asked to turn on a dime. We have to be agile. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about what this means for them. A lot of times I go into a breakout room or I ask them, which one shows up the most for you right now? Volatility, uncertainty, which challenges you the most? And people will explore that together. And the breakout rooms will come back and say, it's really interesting. In the same crazy world, every breakout room will come back with something different. But then we get to see their insights as to what's contributing to that. And that's where the light bulbs start going off. So we explore the types of change. There's something developmental. So COVID-19 comes, improving something you're already doing. Well, we've got to get people, we've got to mobilize the workforce. How do we do that? What still works? Or transitional, do we have to replace something completely with something new? Or a lot of us found ourselves in this transformational mode where we had no clue what was going to happen or the things we needed to move on through this or how long it was going to last. So we just had to be agile enough to be patient to see what emerges as we go along. Spent a lot of time on this cycle of acceptance, and we actually referred back to this a lot during the program. So the whole goal here is to, first of all, as an individual, look at the cycle here and really ask yourself some questions about where you are in the cycle. And then we transition into looking at where your team is, because they're probably all over the map here. So a couple of things I'll point out within this cycle is it goes from, if you look at the colors take you from this unconscious behavior that you have and that you exhibit and that we exhibit and others exhibit in the workplace, to having to consciously come out of that and accept the fact that we must move on. So acceptance doesn't necessarily mean denial, fear, anger, resistance, and you could probably list another 90 things to go in there. It doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that we, first as leaders, and then with our groups, reach a point where we know we have to move on. So what is it we need to accept in order to move on? And I encourage people, this is a conversation. This isn't just a tool that you put out there. This is a conversation. And we ask, what I would have a team meeting. What is it? I understand. I acknowledge we're all vulnerable. There's fear, there's anger, there's all this stuff going on. But what do we as a group have to accept to move forward so that we can start to look at other ways of doing business? And along that comes with the personal empowerment around what do we want to be known for? When people look at our group, what are some of the words we want them to associate with us? What are some of the feelings we want to leave them with? So we can take this in a number of different directions. The way I decide what direction to go in is constant dialogue with people in the group, within the class. So we use the chat, we use whiteboards to get their ideas, we use the annotation tool, we go into breakout rooms and we come back out. What are some of the other things we do? Oh, I encourage people to do this. Come off, take your speakers off and just shout out or chat about what it is that you want to share with the group. A lot of times I do this. I cannot have slides up the entire time. I'll throw something out there. I'll throw out a concept, and then I'll put the slide down. If it's something I want them to think about, I'll say, take a picture of the slide. And then we come back in the room and we do strongly encourage people to put on their cameras. So I always say, you know what? If you're in the classroom, I wouldn't make you stand outside the door. So why don't you just come in and put your camera on? And there are times when we know the bandwidth is not good and that's difficult to do, but we want to make sure that everybody's engaged. So we spend a lot of time on this. This is always a breakout room. In the breakout room, go through where are you on this? And I tell people, this is one of the first breakout rooms we do. And I give them an extra time in there to be able to say, this is a vulnerable time for all of us. The first thing I want you to do is share about yourselves. Go in here and just share about what's going on in your world that is so darn challenging. And then it's just nice to verbalize that, break down some barriers. And then we'll talk about moving into the conversation of where you are on the change curve. And when you think about your team, what the biggest challenges you're facing right now. And then throughout the program, we get an opportunity to workshop that together. Any questions so far? We're halfway. And put them in the chat if you want. Sharon, just let me know, please. And or you can come off mute at any time and have your voice be heard. So the whole thing is getting people to move from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset in all the programs that I facilitate. So the fixed mindset's great because it's safety. The fixed mindset's great when we get all the memos about how we're going to proceed with new protocol and all the information people like to have. But the transformation is in the growth mindset when we really challenge people towards change. And to challenge them, we ask questions and we have them think and internalize where they find themselves in the change, going back to the change curve, and what they're willing to do about that. And then we do have some process things, which change is a process. And we have 8 steps here, which you can see: sense of urgency, the coalition, developing the vision, communication. So this program is very broad-based. We cover a number of different things in here, not just a change curve. So I like to make people aware of the fact that you can succeed. What?
Aletha would like to know, what level in the organization do you conduct this training for? Does it include the executive level?
So we have had anywhere from high-level leaders where we've just done classes for executives and maybe directors and above, or high potential leaders. We also have had classes where there's frontline people. It's so the nice thing about it, you can adapt it to anybody and anything. Of course, we love when an executive understands what their people are going to be trained on and what the concepts are, because the whole goal of change or any other training is to change behavior. So I encourage executives, if you're not in the training, to at least go out and kind of scan the workforce. And when you see new behaviors, call them out. You see new behaviors as a result of the investment you made, call them out, because that's what you want to reinforce. People say reinforce the training, but you're not really reinforcing the training, you're reinforcing behavior change. And you'll know because, first of all, there's an awareness for a need for change. There's got to be a desire to support the change. People have to know the knowledge of how to change, the ability required, and sometimes the ability doesn't come in the way it used to come. We encourage people to think outside the box. And a lot has changed because the people, not only the skills we need have changed, but the people from the CEOs all the way down to the organizations, throughout the organizations, I'm finding are challenged because that one or two person that might have been the rock and always depended on to be consistent and be supportive may have just still been going through a lot because of the pandemic, or maybe they have people overseas right now who are involved in everything that's going on worldwide. So we have to give people the space and really analyze and look at who has the ability right now to do what we need to get done and who's going to need some help. And how can we reinforce that? I challenge people around communicating from the inside out, which is, it's so easy to go around and share what you do and how you do it, but the why is not always evident. And the farther you go layering throughout the organization, a lot of people in the change are so far removed from the decision that it makes it really difficult for them to understand how what their little part of the world, whatever they do, is going to impact something that really matters. So when we communicate, it's not just here's what you need to do and here's how you need to do it. Here's why. And that's another one. Because what we're after is that red box there. We want to inspire people as leaders, not only, and not just manipulate and just give information and tell and tell and tell. But yet people do resist change. So I incorporate a piece of the personality and behavior style in most of the programs, and then I spin it towards that program. So in change, I talk about how these 4 distinct personality styles show up within change. So a doer, so I'm going to use COVID-19 as an example. When the pandemic first started and there were major decisions being made, and they had to be made really, really quickly. One thing in that room, or in those rooms, or wherever they were all these different personalities trying to figure out what are we going to do and when. Well, the doer is probably sitting there saying, okay, I know we have all the information, but sooner or later we have to just make a decision. That's what a doer does. A thinker is overanalyzing, thinking, or analyzing to a good impact, for the good of all, to be correct and analytical and know what works and what doesn't work and what the risk is. The talker needs to socialize it so everybody's on the same page and look at the bigger picture. And the feeler is going to bring harmony to the decision. So within any room of any decision or project group or team, it's great to have all these different personality styles. So we talk about how do we leverage them. First, we plot everybody in the room, and then we talk about how we're going to leverage them. We give them some ideas, going into breakout rooms. They take pictures of things like this, and then they go in the breakout rooms, and we do a lot of different things. I again, get a feel for where the group's at, and then figure out if it's going to be better for them to explore. Each room explores a different doer thinker or have actual conversations with each other. I'm constantly, here's where we grid it, but I'm constantly in touch, with the group, pulsing them, trying to find out what they need so that they walk away. Because again, 3-4 hour trainings, especially on Zoom, I tell people just be really selfish with this time, be selfish with your growth. The last piece we touch on is emotional intelligence, because we all know, or we might not know, that IQ you're born with, and that's great. And people can get better at learning things and taking in knowledge and taking notes and things like that, or getting accreditations. But the fact is, it doesn't change your IQ. What does change is your EQ. And in fact, more leaders, the better leaders are more emotionally intelligent than intellectually intelligent. And there's another piece that we don't get into here, which is the PQ, which is the positive intelligence quotient, which is the saboteurs that keep you from doing what you need to do, that trip you up again and again, and you know they're there, but you don't know what to do about them. So we talk about the emotional energy matrix. What's it like when your team is in the survival mode, and the performance mode, of the recovery, or the burnout, and the importance of moving through each of these modes. You can't stay in the survival mode forever. You also can't stay in the performance zone forever. So what do you do when you find out, okay, where's my team now? And where do I need to step into? Maybe we need a little recovery, and you put a timestamp on that. But if you don't, then you get burnout. So we have a whole conversation around this. And again, it comes from them in the rooms. Where's your team at? Where are you at? to challenge around that. We do an assessment. We give them this little assessment to do. And I encourage them to find one thing on here that they call upon when they're really in an adverse situation that they want to, make sure that's always in the forefront, but challenging them to think, okay, when I have interactions that aren't that great and it goes bad or sour time and again, what's one of these emotional intelligence characteristics that I really need to focus in on that I'm not utilizing right now? And this all goes about emotions changing behavior, because we see, again, behaviors, but all those behaviors are driven by emotions. And what does it mean to be emotionally resilient and show up in the workplace? And that positive thing is about being like a booster shot for others. And there's a video, we don't show it in all the programs, but it's about emotional contagion, and negative emotional contagion spreads like wildfire, like a virus. I mean, I don't mean to play on words, but it does. And what can you do about it? Well, it just takes one person to be the booster shot and to stand up and maybe say something positive or find the window to open in the situation. So there you go, spread emotional contagion. The last part is the elephant and the rider. This is the model. We move through the pathways of knowledge. The elephant is the motivation, is the emotions of people that you have to go through in order for the rider, who's the rational driver, to be able to get them anywhere. So this is the workshop part of it, is what to do with this elephant. And this is, we go through how to direct it, how to motivate it, and then how to shape the path for easy change for your people. And we end every program with reflection on what they learned, or, yesterday I was doing one, what tool, here I showed a picture of a toolbox and I said, each of you has to tell me what tool you're going to bring back to your workplace as a result of this interaction, and how you're going to apply it.